Ladies and gentlemen, to kick off Sri Lanka's first national symposium on data for the Sustainable Development Goals, please join us in welcoming on stage the United Nations Acting Resident Coordinator in Sri Lanka, Ms. Simrin Singh, to deliver the opening remarks.
Good morning. Honorable Karu Jayasuriya, Speaker of the Parliament, Honorable Thilanga Sumathipala, Chairman of the Select Committee of Parliament on the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, distinguished guests, fellow UN colleagues, good morning to you all. It is certainly my great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the United Nations in Sri Lanka to the first ever National Symposium on data for the Sustainable Development Goals. At the very beginning, I'd just like to say that the SDGs are not necessarily UN SDGs, they're owned by all of us. It is owned by the people of the world. They are the global goals adopted by member states in 2015, not too long ago, to end poverty, fight inequality and injustice, and to fix climate change. Sri Lanka, alongside 192 countries around the world, committed to the ambitious agenda by agreeing to achieve 17 global goals by the year 2030. These goals will define Sri Lanka in 2030 and ensure a better tomorrow for all of us. As decision makers, we must ensure that our efforts are focused, reach the people that need it the most, and overall better humanity. But before we get there, let's begin at the beginning. To achieve these goals, we need to know where we are starting from. Without data, we cannot know how many people are born and at what age they might die, how many men, women, and children are still living in poverty, how many women and youth are in employment, how many children need education, how many doctors to train, or how many schools to build. Knowing this crucial information is a starting point to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. It helps to drive decisions, to understand where we are now and where we need to be, and most critically, to guide how we need to get there. This National Symposium on Data for SDGs is deeply relevant to our journey towards achieving these ambitious 17 goals. This is why, with the support of the Parliament Select Committee on the SDGs and the Ministry of Sustainable Development and Wildlife, we have gathered a vast variety, 300, I understand maybe even 350 people today, from the government, from fellow UN agencies, from the private sector, civil society, academia, and research organizations to speak about data, its importance, relevance, and impact for Sri Lanka in particular. Data, simply put, is the lifeblood of decision-making. As the UN, we recognize the importance of working together towards improved data, knowledge management, and evidence-based policymaking. This is why it is the first of 4 driver groups under the United Nations Sustainable Development Framework for Sri Lanka. This framework outlines the work of the United Nations family as agreed to with the government of Sri Lanka for the next 5 years. The importance of data cannot be overemphasized. It is the foundation to building a better Sri Lanka. But where do we begin? There are 17 goals, as you know, and about 169 targets under those goals. To add to that, there's something like 244 indicators on which to monitor progress as to where we are in meeting those goals. These indicators, 244 of them, are an indication of where we are about to start from and where then we might need to go. Identifying this baseline data, where we're starting from, mapped against these indicators, will tell us where Sri Lanka stands today in relation to the SDGs. This is the starting point. Without knowing where we are, we simply cannot plan on where we need to go. Today, through this first ever National Symposium on Data for the SDGs, the United Nations extends its support to the government of Sri Lanka in this crucial national process. Mapping localized data against the SDGs will certainly drive evidence-based policy making. It will enable effective monitoring, and it will, most importantly, ensure no one is left behind. I hope that you will benefit from the insights shared by the esteemed local and international resource persons here today over the next 2 days. These professionals come from very different backgrounds, representing the government of Sri Lanka, UN agencies, and thought leaders, innovators, and will provide you a diverse sense of how best data can be used and captured in Sri Lanka. Let me end by re-emphasizing that data helps to drive decisions. It helps us understand we are now and where we need to be. It is through data we can further Sri Lanka's realization and commitment to the sustainable development for a better future for all. And the UN family here will work hand in hand with you all on this very important journey. Thank you so much.
Data is indeed the lifeblood of decision-making. Thank you, Ms. Singh, for emphasizing and reminding us that SDGs are owned by all of us as Sri Lankans. It is our collective responsibility to achieve the global goals as one country.
මෙවර මහසභාවට ඉදිරිපත් කරනු ලබන තිරසර සංවර්ධනය මත පදනම් වූ පශ්චාත් 2015 සඳහා වන සංවර්ධන න්‍යාය පත්‍රය සහ ඒ සමග ඉදිරිපත් කරනු ලබන විශ්ව ක්‍රියාකාරී සැලැස්මට ශ්‍රී ලංකා රජයේ පූර්ණ සහාය හිමි වන බව මා මෙහිදී ප්‍රකාශ කරන්නේ ඉතාමත්ම සතුටින්.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I cordially invite the Deputy Speaker in his capacity as the Chair of the Parliament Select Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Honourable Thilanga Sumathipala.
Ayubowan, Honourable Karu Jayasuriya, Speaker of the Parliament, the Acting UN Representative of Sri Lanka, ILO representatives, all the UN agencies, Secretary General of Parliament, Secretaries of the Ministries and respective all the government representatives, all the agencies of UN, members who are representing various non-government organizations as well as guests, visitors, people who are here this morning. Well, it gives me great pleasure to address you this morning in the capacity of the Chairman of the SDG Parliament Select Committee. We have been working for more than a year, since November 2016, and then we managed to put the first Parliament report as the first country in the world. The report that was present before a House for the first time in any Parliament, making an assessment of the SDGs and the impact that can create to the country. In that, we found there is a global agenda. We all know, all of you all are fully aware. And any country to go forward, they need to have a measured plan to achieve respective goals. As a country, we all know our poverty level, mortality rate, various other sanitary achievements that we anticipate wasn't easy. You can say drinking water or housing, roads, education, children, you can name all that. For a government to make their policy, formulation of the policy, they need to have proper data. Unless the data is not accurate, then it's difficult for any government to make assessment and come out with a policy framework. Then the policy can be executed by the executive branch, provided that we know where we are. This symposium is dedicated for the purpose of us to understand the importance of data, why we need data, methodology of data collection, and how we can make use of that data based on the accuracy of data. Just for one example, we're talking about 5.8% unemployment in the district of Colombo district. And within the Colombo district, we have Avissavella, then we have Sitavaka as a rural place. You might find the Avissavella unemployment is maybe 9%. And in Avissavella area, probably, or the divisional secretariat, you'll have a GN division, Grama Sevaka division, which we have more than 14,000 GN divisions. Maybe in Avissavella, Sitavaka, you will find 24% unemployment in that base level. So, just because Colombo, if we say unemployment is 5.9 or 6%, that doesn't mean the entire Colombo district is maintaining or enjoying that level of comfort. Similarly, when you look at the entire network, we find there are certain levels that we collect data, they are accurate, but it doesn't come to the center. The Census and Statistics Department, when we looked at the SDGs, we found there are only 28 measurements are coming into Census and Statistics Department. Some are coming in once a year, some in once in 2 years, sometimes once in 5 years. We do our census once in 10 years. So the information flow is taking sometimes more than what we can make a proper assessment. So while we are behind the collection of data and data accuracy with only 28 disciplines, we may need more than 60 to look at 17 goals and 169 targets. We need more than 60 measurements. So Census and Statistics Department made a fabulous presentation to the government. Government is now very serious, setting aside automation, data collection, and various networking to make sure that we are on track with it. When the data is such, which is collecting and coming into the center, there is data at the lower level. Plenty of data at the grassroots level. They know the childbirth to how many people are sick, how many people are disabled, how many children are going to school, at what age they are having their primary school, you name it. All the data is also collected at certain level, but it doesn't come into the center. It doesn't come fast enough. At the same time, there is no system to bring the data up to the top level. So national planning is finding it difficult, and also make sure that we spend our money wisely through our national budget to achieve these goals. So this symposium is to assist the government to make sure that we do our part of the job. We from the Parliament, Honorable Karu Jayasuriya, Speaker, every 3 months call for a meeting in the Parliament. What's happening with SDG? Where we are? When are we getting the next report? He's so serious about it. We meet once in 2 weeks in Parliament with all the UN agencies, especially UNDP had been there from the inception. And then we have put the templates. We have sent the letters after letters to the government agencies. We had discussions with His Excellency Maithripala Sirisena, the President. And now we got the President's Secretary, Sir Austin Fernando, to send a circular on our behalf. I'm sure it must have reached all the government agencies by now, with templates in Sinhalese, Tamil and English, all 3 languages, to make sure from Jaffna to Hambantota, Monoragala, Ampara, Colombo, you cover the entire 22 districts, the raw data is coming in properly, in a systematic way, where we can make a proper measurement. When the government is setting aside money through their budget, when the government is saying, look, we would like to by this year, 2020, 2022, 2025, these are our goals, these are our aspirations, this is the planning the government is having. They have to make sure, the government has to make sure, the adequate money is being set aside to deal with that. Education, we've been talking about 6%. Whether 6% of education is being spread properly into respective disciplines and at all levels. And is it the 6% is the right number against the national budget? Based on the data for us to achieve what we want to achieve. So we have done a study with the budget and the SDGs. We wanted to see whether the alignments are right. Even though government is saying the poverty elevation or whatever proper line of thinking with regard to climatic change or whatever, whether the national budget set aside adequate funds to deal with it over the next 3 years, 5 years for us to bring those numbers down. So this exercise will help us. This symposium will give a huge start for us to have our national planning and get the government to be influenced. We at the Parliament, as a select committee, all what we can do is make sure there is policy, there's execution, we are making a monitoring of it and keep the pressure going. At the same time, we found the measurements that we are using. When you say $1.50, it's about 225 rupees or so. That is how we say the poverty line per family. When we have a GDP, and then we say our per capita, say 4,000 US dollars, maybe 6,000, we are looking at 10,000. So we have to adjust our measurements, yardsticks, based on various levels of achievements. We can't say our poverty is at $1.50 if our per capita and measurements are going up. Then we have to say, because you can't buy and live with $1.50 if your GDP and your per capita measurements are achieving better. So you have to have a formula against real life. Can people live with $4 or $6 a day? Because you can't expect rich to be very rich and poor to get very, very poor. If you are on the middle path, and these measurements, yardsticks are very important. So the government to be influenced and to take policy decisions in the right direction, it's very, very significant. This kind of a symposiums, get information, get you to participate, deliberations are important. So all these ladies and gentlemen who are here are very, very important for us today. It is your contribution what the UN agencies are trying to help us to put together. It is your call, your assistance, your experience, your knowledge which can derive out of these 2 days to prepare a proper document for the country to go forward. So ladies and gentlemen, make use of these 2 days. Let us know your knowledge. Let us have the experience. Let us experience what you would like this country to transform into a better place with proper direction. For us to get that direction, we need genuine data which we can be rely on. That is the purpose of this symposium. And we from the Parliament, on behalf of the Speaker and all the people in the Parliament, we are very serious about this. And therefore, once again, thanking UN agencies for taking the initiative, ILO and UNDP and all the other, especially UNFPA. UNFPA is the UN arm for the data. They've been here for more than 50 years, even though they are very quiet. UNFPA has been more than 50 years helping our country, assisting our country, guiding our country. They have been representing truly to assist Sri Lanka for us to be a better place. With that note, once again, thanking all of you. Thank you so much for coming in the morning. Make use of this for us to make Sri Lanka is a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, for highlighting the fact that Sri Lanka must have a measured plan to achieve the 2030 global goals. And also, thank you very much for your leadership, along with the Department of Census and Statistics, to initiate and also to ensure that this process of convening data for the SDGs happens in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming on stage the Speaker of the Parliament of Sri Lanka, Honorable Karu Jayasuriya.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May I say Ayubowan, Wanakkam, Assalamu alaikum. I extend a very warm and affectionate welcome to all of you who are present here today for these very important sessions which will take this country to a situation where we give our people a better quality of life. Honorable Deputy Speaker of the Parliament, Ms. Thilanga Sumathipala, UN Resident Coordinator, Ms. Simrin Singh, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Secretary General of Parliament, Secretaries of Ministries, members of the representatives of the other UN agencies, all invited participants, friends. I am privileged and honored to be present here today on the invitation for the first National Symposium on Data for the Sustainable Development Goals. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is an ambitious plan that calls on all government to achieve 17 goals within the next 12 years. Sri Lanka adopted these goals in 2015, and the decision makers, it is our responsibility to guide the country towards achieving those SDGs. However, we cannot do this alone. Achieving these goals requires an unprecedented joint effort, as mentioned by the Honorable Deputy Speaker, on the part of the government at every level, the civil society and the private sector, and the millions of individuals and choices of all other actions. However, we cannot do this alone. In order to pave the way forward, data plays a crucial role. Data tells us the story. It tells us where we are and where we need it to be. It also tells us how we need to get there. Data drives decisions. It tells us how many people live in poverty and how many young people are seeking jobs. It has become a very serious problem for the government of Sri Lanka at the moment. It ensures that we count everyone and that no one is left out. For a country such as Sri Lanka, we established digital infrastructure and 20.4 million people gathering, data should be more cohesive and forward-thinking. We should see how we can move away from the traditional data gathering methods to more technology advanced systems that can provide real-time data that can guide policy making in the country. Policies that guided by data will ensure that they are holistic and focused. Such policies can be used to build a better future for all of us in line with the 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development. I must acknowledge the work of the Parliament Select Committee for those SDGs in driving the SDG agenda forward in Sri Lanka, along with the ministries, government institutions, UN agencies, private sector, and civil society. I'm also very proud of the fact that we are the first parliament in the world to have given leadership, and the Sri Lanka Parliament has become a model in this respect, and I must congratulate our Deputy Speaker for spearheading this. While a lot has been achieved there, yet more to be done. Data must be gathered to understand where we stand now as a country and where the gaps are in our journey towards 2030. Without this information, we cannot proceed further towards achieving the SDGs. At the United Nations General Assembly in September 2015, President Maithripala Sirisena strongly endorsed the UN Agenda 2030 and Sustainable Development Goals on behalf of the people of Sri Lanka. The government has sought to implement President's promise during the past 2.5 years. We are proud to report on the following progress. The meeting today is evidence of the efforts made to implement the SDG and Sri Lanka's continuing commitment. The creation of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Sustainable Development also shows the emphasis placed by the government on this subject. In January 2017, in my presence, President Sirisena appointed Professor Mohan Monu Singh as chairman of the Presidential Expert Committee to prepare the Sustainable Sri Lanka 2030 vision, the strategic path. The PEC comprising 40 top Sri Lankan scientists worked on the draft and presented it to the President within 1 year. A copy was also presented to me for distribution to parliamentarians, and the document now undergo dissemination and review through an extensive public consultative process that will inform the President, empower the people, and provide guidance to government, civil society, and businesses. To our knowledge, Sri Lanka is one of the few countries that has produced such a comprehensive strategies blueprint on national sustainable development in response to the UN Agenda 2030. President Sirisena's 2030 vision for Sri Lanka, elaborated in the PEC report, seeks to make our country a sustainable, upper middle income Indian Ocean hub with a prosperous, competitive, and advanced economy, a green and flourishing environment, and an inclusive, harmonious, peaceful, and just society. The report explains Sri Lanka's balanced, inclusive green growth pathway, or I would call it middle path, to sustainable development. The policy priorities identified in the report will help to determine the crucial SDG indicators and targets for Sri Lanka, which in turn will define the key data requirements to be discussed at this very meeting. I'm confident that these 2 days during the National Symposium on Data for the SDGs will bring some valuable discussions to the table on why data is important for decision making and how data can be used to strengthen policies in the country. I thank the United Nations for supporting the government in the process of gathering data for the SDGs, and urge all of you to make the most of the 2 days ahead and in enhancing and growing our shared knowledge on data and how it can be used to build a better Sri Lanka for us and all, and to, at the end of the day, to give a better quality of life to all Sri Lankans. Thank you for the courtesy of your attention.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for joining us today in spite of your busy schedule. And also thank you for affirming the centrality of data in achieving sustainable development and reaffirming the commitment of the government towards the 2030 development agenda.